On this Thursday night, a boost to the battlefield. Canada's contribution of heavy weapons to Ukraine.
These 4 tanks are combat ready.
As Russia fires a new deadly barrage of missiles. An estimate of the far-reaching and fatal consequences of COVID-19 misinformation.
It makes me so sad that so many people could have been saved.
The Big Dig. A major snowstorm that's created a mess for millions of Canadians. And the asteroid on course to whip past the Earth. Why it's not the end of the world.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Hours after it was confirmed that Western allies, including Canada, are sending tanks to Ukraine, Russia fired back, launching a volley of missile and drone strikes, killing at least 11 people across Ukraine and targeting energy infrastructure. Canada's defense minister confirmed today 4 of Canada's Leopard 2 tanks will be sent, along with ammunition and spare parts, and Canadian troops are being deployed to train Ukrainian soldiers. It's all part of a coordinated effort to boost Ukraine's tactical advantage on the battlefield. We'll get to more on Canada's contribution in just a moment, but first, Crystal Goomansingh on Russia's deadly response.
Lives turned upside down. This is such a tragedy for me. I'm telling you, I'm left without anything. Deadly countrywide missile strikes, possible retribution for Ukraine securing battle tanks from allied nations. Russian newspapers featured stories about the tanks with a pro-Kremlin slant. State-run TV mocking the donated equipment, calling the American units battered and the German Leopards toothless cats. On the streets of Moscow, people parroted the views. Russia needs scrap metal, that's all. Let them send tanks. Since our country started all of this, we need to kick them in the teeth. Canada is the latest country to join the battle tank donor list. On Wednesday, Germany confirmed it would send 14 Leopards, followed by the United States pledging 31 Abrams. Poland, the UK, and France are also a part of the group the Kremlin accuses of a blatant provocation, while at the same time disparaging the value of the machines.
It doesn't matter whether it's the Challenger, the Abrams, or the Leopard. They have overmatch on Russian capabilities in terms of their firepower and certainly protection.
While visiting his troops, Germany's defense minister says their tanks could be on the ground in Ukraine by spring. That would allow for a push to reclaim territory when the weather is more favorable. But Ukrainians must first get through the winter. Crystal Goomansingh, Global News, London.
Canada's defense minister has confirmed what we reported yesterday, that Canada will send 4 German-made Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. Mercedes Stephenson is with me from Ottawa. Mercedes, 4 is something, but is it all we can offer?
It is all we can offer, according to the defense sources I've spoken to, without risking potentially gutting the Canadian Army's capabilities. We have so few tanks that this was pretty much all they thought they could offer and still be able to defend Canada. The tanks we're sending are actually the tanks the Canadian Armed Forces train on. We don't deploy them, but they're still considered to be superior to what Russia is operating in Ukraine. They'll be delivered by Canadian C-17 planes, which can lift very heavy things like tanks, and that's expected to happen in coming weeks. There's still questions, Donna, about where spare parts might come from for these tanks, but it's still a good start, according to retired Major General Dennis Thompson. He's a former NATO task force commander. This is what he had to say.
The logistics of this is going to be probably even more difficult than the training challenge because of the mix and match of equipment that Ukraine has inherited. But as people like to say, it's a good problem to have. Better to have the equipment and the logistics headache rather than not have it at all.
Mercedes, what about the possibility of retaliation for sending tanks?
Well, that is a very real possibility, and it's actually something that one Canadian intelligence agency is warning about tonight. The Communications Security Establishment, which is responsible for things like Canada's cybersecurity, is warning defense and critical infrastructure providers to brace and prepare for potential Russian attacks. The Russians have threatened this, and we've seen it happen to allies. And now that Canada, too, is offering tanks, they say that we need to be vigilant that it could happen here, too, in coming days.
Mercedes Stephenson in Ottawa, thank you. It's almost February, and if you're tired of winter, that's the good news. Spring is inching closer. The bad news, another snowstorm has walloped southern Ontario and Quebec and is blustering its way through Atlantic Canada. And yesterday in Kingston, Ontario, this happened. Lightning and thunder in a snowstorm. It's called thundersnow. A number of people captured images of the rare weather phenomenon. Meteorologist Anthony Farnell will go into more detail on that in a moment. But first, Mike Drolet on the storm's impact.
Montrealers have an expectation when it comes to winter. It's either cold, snowing, or a mix of the two. What they don't expect is having to wait until the end of January to see it. And now, with 30 centimeters of fresh snow, the city is scrambling to salt and clear 10,000 kilometers of roads and sidewalks.
We will need more than 5 days to complete the operation.
The storm had the expected impact on air travel, with many flights canceled out of Toronto and Montreal, leaving passengers temporarily stranded.
Our flight arrived really late last night, so we actually had to run to try and catch our other flight and get them to open the door for us. And we managed to get on that plane, but then the plane got canceled, so it's been a day.
Actually, it's been a winter unlike any other in recent memory, with many ski hills in Ontario and Quebec that have relied almost solely on artificial snow ecstatic to finally see the real stuff. In Toronto, cars were sliding all over the icy roads, which some saw, oddly enough, as a challenge.
Were you here for fun, or?
Yeah, we just want to see how it was around here.
And in Ottawa, where the canal has yet to freeze, digging out didn't seem like a chore.
Well, I'm actually kind of happy it finally is acting like winter in Ottawa.
But alas, not everybody is smiling. Atlantic Canada got its fair share of snow, but with rain already falling, thoughts of skiing have been replaced with concerns about flooding. Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
Global News Chief Meteorologist Anthony Farnell is tracking this storm and the thunder snow for us. Anthony.
Well, this large storm that we've been tracking for days is lifting to the north quickly. That's a good thing towards Labrador and Newfoundland. So the worst of the rain, the snow, those damaging winds will impact these areas next. It's improving weather for Halifax and the rest of the Maritimes after a day of wind and power outages and 50 millimeters of rain. This is the second big storm to hit that area this week. Back to the west around the Great Lakes, in particular in Kingston, a rather unique phenomenon occurred in the heaviest snow yesterday. It was hours of lightning strikes, what we call thunder snow. It is a phenomenon not too different than a summer thunderstorm, where you need updrafts and lift and also friction. But still, it is a rare occurrence, and it happened quite a few times in Kingston yesterday. Back to you.
Thunder snow is real, Anthony. Thanks. Millions of people in the U.S. are also under weather alerts. A storm system brought tornadoes to the south and snow in the Midwest and Northeast. A tornado in Texas sent this family running from their RV to seek shelter in a ditch. Car crashes littered highways. Hundreds of thousands of people were left without power. There have been at least 158 reports of tornadoes this month alone, making it the most active January on record in the U.S. Other parts of the U.S. are digging out and preparing for more snow through Monday. And countries in East Asia are struggling with days of heavy snow and freezing temperatures. In Japan, at least 4 deaths are being linked to winter conditions there. Record lows were also recorded across South Korea. In the capital, Seoul, temperatures stayed below -15 degrees for 2 straight days. And in China, earlier this week, the country's northernmost city recorded its coldest temperature ever, -53 degrees Celsius. Well, we know misinformation and conspiracy theories are spreading faster than ever before, largely online. But quantifying the damage they do is not easy. Now, a group of academics has attempted to add up the impact of misinformation about COVID-19 in Canada. The Council of Canadian Academies estimates misinformation contributed to the vaccine hesitancy of more than 2 million Canadians during a 9-month period in 2021. It estimates that hesitancy led to at least 2,800 deaths, along with an estimated $300 million in medical costs. It says misinformation also led to deep divisions within society, even within families, divisions that continue today. And as Heather Yourex-West explains, there is no vaccine for that.
I want to cry. It makes me so sad that so many people could have been saved.
For Trudy Ballard, the findings of a new study by the Council of Canadian Academies feel so personal because they are. In October 2021, Trudy Ballard lost her dad. He died of COVID-19.
There was so much misinformation being put out there, and unfortunately, he believed a lot of that.
Ballard believes misinformation prevented her dad from getting the COVID vaccine. Researchers say he was far from alone. Using a mathematical model, a panel of experts have tried to measure the cost of COVID misinformation in both dollars and lives.
What would things have been like had all those people who thought COVID was a hoax gotten vaccinated as soon as they were eligible?
Had that happened, the models suggest that within a 9-month period of 2021, there would have been 198,000 fewer COVID-19 cases, 13,000 fewer people in hospital, and 3,500 fewer patients in ICU.
It wasn't just anti-vaccine and conspiracy theory and the 5G chip theory that was ripping through our hospital. It was the lack of faith in healthcare professionals and expertise that was killing us.
And it's that distrust and the anger that followed that's perhaps more difficult to quantify and even harder to fix.
We were the victims of death threats. To this day, I have certain distant family members who accuse me daily of being a mass murderer from vaccination.
So what's the solution? The CCA report says there's a lot of work to be done, from holding social media companies more accountable to ensuring accurate medical information is communicated more effectively. Of course, nothing can be done to give Trudy time back with her dad. She just hopes something can be learned from his death. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
Toronto police will be increasing their presence on buses and streetcars to try to reduce the number of violent attacks. This week, 2 people were taken to the hospital with serious injuries after being stabbed, and bus drivers were swarmed by a group of teenage boys.
These deployments will focus on reducing victimization. Our officers will be on, in, and around the transit system across the city, throughout the day and late into the evening, each and every day.
Toronto's police chief says about 80 additional officers will be stationed across the transit system, and the Transit Commission is also adding more special constables to shifts, as well as improving camera surveillance. Other cities across Canada have had similar spikes in random violence, prompting calls for a national task force to try to come up with a potential solution. The head of Via Rail has admitted that company could have done more to help stranded passengers during last month's winter storm that caused major service disruptions across Ontario and Quebec. And he says Via has hired an outside consulting firm to review what went wrong.
I think a lot of us need to take stock of what happened and address the elements that are under our control to make sure that if ever one of these events happens again, that the impacts on our passengers is minimized.
Senior Via executives appeared before a House of Commons committee today to answer questions about the delays. In some cases, passengers were stranded on trains for more than 20 hours. Via also said a CP rail derailment near Toronto, which was out of its control, contributed to the problems. Via added that climate change is making transportation systems more vulnerable. Outrage from grieving families. Coming up, their demands Boeing be held accountable for 2 deadly plane crashes. Plus, record breaker, what this woman says is the key to enjoying the journey of life. Boeing was in court in Texas today, along with family members of those killed in 2 crashes of the 737 MAX jets. Boeing told the court it was not guilty of concealing information about flight control systems, but flaws in those systems were found to have led to the accidents. Still, Boeing avoided a trial by agreeing to pay a $2.5 billion settlement. This hearing marks the first time Boeing has been forced to answer the fraud charge in a public court after the judge hearing the case ruled those killed were crime victims and should have been involved in settlement negotiations.
We live in a pain and distress, unstable ground, and yet the murderer walking free, going home to their loved ones. I did not only lost my daughter, I lost my past, my today, my future, my tomorrow, and same with all these people.
Nearly 350 people were killed in those crashes in Indonesia and Ethiopia in 2018 and 2019. A new Boeing flight control system was found partly to blame, grounding thousands of MAX jets worldwide for 20 months. Attention Home Depot shoppers, ahead what you need to know if the store emails you receipts. Many Canadians are more aware than ever about data privacy and data breaches these days. And when a Canadian man was deleting his Facebook account, he was shocked to find the site's parent company, Meta, had a record of most of the in-store purchases he'd made at Home Depot. He made a formal complaint to the Privacy Commissioner, who found his data and that of thousands of other customers was being shared without their consent. Turia Isri explains.
Would you like your receipt emailed? It's a question Canadians are routinely asked at the checkout.
Thank you.
Customers at Home Depot thought their emails were only being shared with the retailer, but they were unknowingly handing them over to someone else as well.
When they were buying at the counter, they had no reason to suspect that this information would be shared.
Personal data was shared with Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, without customers' consent to track purchases and send targeted ads. Details that were revealed during an investigation by Privacy Commissioner Philippe Dufresne.
What we were investigating in this case was the privacy practice of Home Depot, and ultimately we found that Home Depot did not sufficiently protect its customers' information.
The emails Home Depot shared were encoded, so they could not be read by Facebook employees. But Dufresne found Meta employed an automated process that allowed it to match email addresses attached to Facebook accounts, unlocking a trove of data. The Privacy Commissioner launched his investigation after receiving a complaint. It's not clear how many Home Depot customers are affected, but the Commissioner says it's likely a high number, since the company secretly shared information for 4 years. This went on between 2018 and 2022. Home Depot says it did not notify customers of its information sharing agreement due to the risk of what it called consent fatigue.
For collecting personal information, businesses should really be informing their customers on how they plan on using that information and if they're going to be sharing it with third parties.
Despite the discovery, the hardware chain is not facing any fines.
Well, it certainly may be that there are other companies that are engaged in some of the same kinds of practices.
The retail world has become more digital, but lawyers say legislation is lagging behind.
When you see this kind of misuse, I think, of people's personal information, people would expect real penalties. And Canadian privacy law, at least as it's currently structured, just doesn't allow for that.
Parliament is working on strengthening consumer protections, an upgrade privacy experts believe is badly needed. Turia Isri, Global News, Ottawa.
Just swinging by. Next, what you need to know about an asteroid coming exceedingly close to Earth. Maybe you've heard the saying, age only matters if you're a cheese. Well, the woman who is now the oldest person in the world has some tips on how she stays feeling young. Maria Brañas Morera is 115. Born in San Francisco, she's survived 2 world wars, the Spanish Civil War, and 2 pandemics. She credits her longevity to tranquility, connection with family and friends, contact with nature, emotional stability, lots of positivity, and staying away from toxic people. And don't get hit by an asteroid. Tonight, an asteroid the size of a truck brushed past the Earth, just 3,600 kilometers away, one of the closest approaches ever recorded. And it's not like we've known about it for a long time. It was first detected just last week by this man, an amateur astronomer, in an observatory in Crimea. He also found the first interstellar comet in our solar system. Keeping an eye on these things is important. Eric Sorensen explains why.
If the solar system were a barbershop, this would be a close shave. An asteroid the size of a delivery truck is zooming beneath communication satellites and over the southern tip of South America, skimming just 3,600 kilometers above the surface of the Earth, streaking at 540 kilometers per minute from the solar system's vast ocean of asteroids. 2023 BU was only discovered last Saturday.
The asteroid 2023 BU is as close an asteroid pass to the Earth as I can ever remember. We can't see all of the asteroids that are coming at us. Sometimes they are surprising.
Professional and amateur astronomers are spotting new asteroids all the time. Thousands have been discovered in the last 25 years. Most, like 2023 BU, are small and pose no threat. But the risk is not science fiction. NASA's Planetary Defense Office is on constant asteroid watch, including 2023 BU as it passes by right now. Last fall's DART mission anticipates a future threat. It crashed a spacecraft into a tiny asteroid to change its orbit, and it worked.
As far as we can tell, our first planetary defense test was a success.
Asteroid tracking and vigilance are essential. Earth's gravity will change BU 2023's orbit around the Sun, which means all number of asteroid orbits will change around other planets, and some could suddenly head our way.
Astronomers around the world, as I said, professionals and amateurs, are scanning the skies because the situation can change significantly.
Along with the risks from asteroids are potential rewards, including mineral wealth. The 7-year-long OSIRIS-REx mission to asteroid Bennu is on its way back to Earth with asteroid samples. They'll arrive home just 8 months from now, demonstrating what's possible. Asteroids represent a growth industry as scientists look for new asteroids and try to avert the ones, as Hollywood imagines it, that might come looking for us.
Good luck to us all.
Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
And that is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is this foggy scene in Calgary. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.